you want to go ahead and get started while we can? Welcome to Littleton Conservation meeting, April 27th. So as always, we have to read, because this is not a live.
That's Jim.
We will hold off a second for technology for our chairman to join us. Actually, I'm going to read this, so that way we can.
Sarah's reading the introduction, but
I'll go ahead and start it. And so basically, starts. Good evening. We'll open the little conversation hearing. Today is April 27th. The meeting is being held virtually through Zoom. People that join the meeting are set, so their microphones are muted, so that the meeting can occur in an orderly fashion. We ask that people who join keep their microphones on mute, so background noises do not interfere with the meeting. Should any member of the public wish to speak, we ask that they use raise the hand function to let the staff know, or just unmute and speak up as well. Staff will be monitored for raised hands. Carl's going to do that for us this evening and inform the chair or myself of individuals that wish to speak. After speaking, we request that the participant return their microphone back to mute. The town of Littleton began conducting remote participation Zoom meetings pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 19th, 2020. Since that time, unanticipated legal concerns relating to the open meeting law have been brought to our attention by the town clerk. These concerns were supported by the Attorney General's office, confirmed by town council. One concern is that the chat function allows a parallel text conversation to the board's public meeting. Chat is essentially running commentary that is occurring but is not moderated or followed by the chairman. All participants and listeners may not be aware of the comments being made because some meeting participants join the phone and do not see the conversations joined by phone. Another concern is conversations between residents within the chat room, which are not incorporated into the public record. In response to these concerns, the town will implement the following changes, which prohibit any member of the public from participating in discussion and sharing information during a public meeting, and will ensure that all listeners and participants have equal access during the meeting. If you wish to participate in this meeting, you can, if you're on the phone, you dial *9, which will basically, in essence, raise your hand for you. The meeting host will notify the chairman, and the chairperson will determine whether and when allow the public comment. When called upon participants, please remember to state your name and your address. So without further ado, is James on, Amy, or not on?
I'm on.
okay, I think he's SMT 53 ONU.
All righty.
And I can't, Mark, I don't know if you, I can rename him.
Okay. So, Jim, we have already read the meeting, and so we're now ready to go to the agenda and approve the minutes, which is for April 13th. If anybody has any issues or corrections, if you could let Amy know that, that would be great. I just had one grammatical one with the Reuben Hoare library line 2, the word, oh, actually scratch that. I already made the change. Okay. Anna, do you have any?
Do you need me to be here?
Thank you. What?
Anybody have any
Hope not.
thoughts on the minutes? Okay, crickets. Anybody want to make a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we accept meeting minutes from April 13th, 2000.
I think Anna disappeared just a second.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we
There you
still
go.
have Anna?
Anna's back.
Do we have a second for Andrew?
Second.
Okay, so now we have to do a roll call. And so during the roll call, if you could state your name and your vote, that would be great. Jim?
James Pickett, yay.
Andrew?
Andrew Samarco, yay.
Kyle?
Kyle Maxfield, yay.
Carl?
Carl Melberg, yay.
Anna, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yay.
Anna, that's Anna Mary, yay. Julie?
Julie Rupp, yay.
Sarah Seward, yay. The vote is unanimous. Okay. Jim, you want to take over?
You can go along with it if you want for a little while.
All right, great.
I can see you're enjoying it.
Yeah, no, okay, thanks. 100%. So Amy had one addition. She wanted to add 2 administrative discussions, which was Proudy. Amy, do you want to go ahead and start with Eagle Scout Pollinator Garden?
I believe Scout is here, yes?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Does anybody else you want me to unmute?
No, not right now.
All right, did you have anything you wanted to share on the screen, or are you just going to talk about what you wanted to do?
I do have a PowerPoint presentation prepared.
And actually, Mark, can I do that in this setting?
Yep, you just have to hand it over to her.
Yeah, you down the bottom, you'll see share screen.
Right, but that's for me.
You want to change it to multiple? I'll change it. There you go.
Thank you.
Amaya, if you want to introduce yourself, I don't know if you want to put your camera on or not, or if you want to leave that function off, but you'll be able to share your screen and walk us through that.
Okay.
And Mark, how do I give her, whoops, where'd she go? There she is. How do I give her screen rights?
She can click it on her screen, right?
Down to the bottom.
Okay, on the bottom.
Yep, yep.
All right. Thank you. Sorry.
So my name is Amelia Corelli, and I am a scout with Troop 19 in Littleton, which is the first girls' troop in Littleton. I recently made the rank of life, and I'm starting my Eagle project. I had the idea to do a pollinator garden locally in town because, as many people know, pollinators are dying out at an alarming rate. So why is this project needed? Because 8 species of bees and over 30 species of butterflies as of 2017 are on the endangered list, which is, in my opinion, way too high. These pollinators are dying out because due to urban development, they are experiencing a loss of habitat. So a lot of the plants that they depend upon to get their food are being lost. Premature yard work also, so people raking up their leaves when it's still way too cold for the bees outside, is causing them to die out as well. Now, because all of these pollinators are no longer in some of the ecosystems around us, we are experiencing a die out of native plants, as well as impact on other animals in the food chain as their food is no longer there. So Ms. Green and Mr. Finley and I had a social distance appropriate meeting at Bumblebee Park last Friday to discuss possible places for this garden. I thought Bumblebee Park would be a great place because of the name, as well as because right now it is just a fairly plain field that you can see from the road. We were looking at some of the rockier areas so that when the highway department goes around to mow it, they don't have to worry about hitting the rocks with their mowers and they can just mow around it. Other factors that we considered were having shelter from all of the elements like the wind and some of the harsher rain, as well as having several smaller gardens spread out around the area. So I have a couple pictures that I took when we were scouting out the area. Here circled, you can see 3 areas that have several rocks in them. This photo was taken from the large tree in the middle of the hill, if you're familiar with the area. So here are a couple more spots that we thought would be great for pollinator gardens. The one on the right here with the rock wall next to it is fairly out of the way, and the rock wall will help to provide a lot of extra habitat for the bees. On the left is the place about midway down the hill. It's also very sheltered and can help provide some beautification from the street. Now, these two areas are also fairly rocky and do have some evergreen shrubs, which can also help to provide some habitat for the bees. So those were the areas that we thought would be great for gardens when we scoped it out on Friday. Now, going forward, some steps that I need to take are the next steps is to get approved by the Scout Committee, both local within my troop and at the council level, and then contact some other organizations about fundraising, such as the Garden Club and the Native Plant Trust. I also wanted to consult with the Highway Department about if putting the gardens in these rockier areas would make it easier for them to mow, or where they think it would be a good idea to have it. And then moving on to plan the gardens, obtain the plants, and organize volunteers. My target start date would be late May and early June. Now, having there be several smaller gardens would allow people to work on this project, even if the 6-foot social distancing requirement is still in effect by then, because we can have the smaller family units working on individual gardens and minimizing contact with other people. Are there any questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Is this involved with where they might be going sledding and stuff on the slopes? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes, it would be, but it would be in areas where it's rocky, so not that great for sledding.
I had the same concern where, at least in those areas, maybe you could plan for shorter or perennials that would, die out in winter and then come back, herbaceous perennials. And then in the ones that are out of the way of the sledding area, have the taller and perhaps woody perennials. That's my thought. And also, one other thought is, at least in this area, although it may change with climate change, but late May, you still have frost. Okay, you still have frost potential. So I wasn't sure if you could still plant appropriately when there's still frost. That's possible.
We have been monitoring weather and we'll continue to monitor weather. And if we need to push out our start date due to colder temperatures or frost, then we'll look into that.
Amelia, I applaud you for your topic. It's something that's near and dear to the conservations. Have you thought of signage in terms of from an educational standpoint, but also perhaps like do not spray, do not pick, like enjoy with your eyes? So just other things, because we've seen some nice gardens in other communities that do have that enhanced, at least letting people know what they are.
Yeah, I was planning on putting up signage, whether it be in addition to the kiosk that is already there, or if I got permission to erect my own kiosk, I was planning on doing educational as well as like, please stay away from these gardens.
You can even just treat it like it's vegetables and do large stakes as well. So that can work as well. And that might take better, Anna, so we can remove them during the winter time so they don't get sledded over.
Yeah.
So this is Carl. Hearing the concerns about the sledding issue, I wonder, is it possible to do it alongside the tree line on the sunnier sections of just, abutting the tree line where it's open?
Yeah, that would be a possibility.
I think this is great. I definitely applaud your efforts and, kind of echo Sarah's appreciation. And I, think this is, it's definitely concerning that we're losing our pollinators. And so I, applaud and, support your efforts. I did have a question about the tree line, and I think Carl mentioned something about the sunnier sections, and I, was just kind of along the same lines, just, if you haven't already, perhaps going out and observing, where the shade might be, especially when the trees are leafed in, or just considering species that, will thrive in the shade as well as the sun. just a consideration.
Yeah, I was planning to go out again when it was sunnier. We did go when it was fairly overcast. So
Yep, there's been a lot of that lately.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was just a thought, but thank you. I think this is a, great thing you're doing.
Thank you.
This is Kyle. I agree. This is a great project, especially for myself and my family. We frequent Bumblebee Park very regularly, so I can definitely echo the sledding being an issue. And it looks like you have the capabilities and awareness to move around as appropriate. Clearly, there wasn't a final design that you have here, so the options are still out there. But I would definitely recommend or second the scouting out some particular locations, like Julie just mentioned, in the shadier sides, maybe. Along the rock wall is a great idea where the public can still access it or see it from the path that's right there, but won't get in the way of the public as well.
Out of curiosity, would a just plain wildflower mix thrown on there, would that contribute to your pollinators?
It would, but I would be focusing more on specific plants that are dying out in our ecosystem, as well as specific plants that are very good for the pollinators as well, as opposed to just a generic wildflower mix, which might have some plants that aren't exactly native to our area.
Mm-hmm.
I was curious as to whether or not it might be fun to add some edibles in there too for people visiting, like blueberries or, various fruiting plants.
Yeah, that was definitely something that I took into consideration. I do love wild blueberries, so that was very high on my list.
Cool. Okay, does anybody have any other questions for Amelia? It sounds like you have unanimous support, so we would encourage you to keep going. We don't want to hold you up in your process, so you can always submit to Amy what your final kind of thoughts are, if the commission would allow her to do so, to Amy. So we wish you great success. Amy, do you have any questions?
Nope. Yeah, we met out there, like Millie said, in the rain and discussed it. And by picking many spots, it also means that you can relocate. If you only dig up rocks as you get started, you can move around. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Have a good night.
Look,
You too.
Amy, you had something about Prouty?
yeah, someone had, or a couple people, actually, I'm not sure if it's the same people or not, had alerted to me to some sedimentation erosion that's going on along the side of the road, coming down from the community farms and the side of the entrance road. So I'm trying to get hold of enough people who are probably, working from home or something to get in there and fix it and clean it up.
Okay. So we'll let you take care of that. Hang, I still haven't done that, so we'll move on.
I got a question.
Another season.
Yeah.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I went through the subdivision up the street, and it seems though they've raised the culverts and stuff in the roadway, and there's another culvert down the bottom that should be raised, but I don't see much of any activity going on up the Chestnut as far as getting stuff done. And I just don't want to see it drag out too far and we not get the road surfaced like we were promised was going to happen and finished up along the bridge and stuff. There's nothing that's going on right now. And I was up there today.
Okay. So Amy, maybe if you get a chance to follow up with that, that'd be great.
Yeah, Colby Field does know what needs to be done, both in terms of getting the road accepted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what the wetland mitigation piece of it too.
Okay, cool. Jim, you want to go ahead and we'll do the 7:45?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So there's a 7:45 continued public hearing, notice of intent, 10 Cleveland Road, USU 29-6-0, Mass DEP 204-9. We do not know the rest of the number. So I think the notes had expressed, Amy, that they were not going to have to come back into this meeting. If it was straightforward and you were going to have a plan. Is that correct?
Hang on a second. I'm getting lost in various screens here. Yeah, they do not, I think Eric is down here somewhere. They do not have the DEP file number yet.
Okay.
And I had him on the agenda because I wasn't sure if it would come in or not. So I had suggested to Eric that maybe show the revised plan, make sure everything's all set. And then once the DEP number gets in, then he might not need to come back.
Okay.
Time if you're all set with this plan that you can see here.
We'll have to vote on that. So can you'll move that over to the May 11th? So
Is it possible we could vote on that and
there's no DEP.
give Amy approval to go ahead to issue the go ahead on it?
What I was thinking is if this plan looks acceptable to you or if you have any questions, let the applicant know. Otherwise we have to wait till we get the DEP file number before we can close.
I can't see the wetland line
Basically it drops right off the bank and goes down towards the water.
I see a little bit of a thing saying something feet, but I can't see all of it. Oh, 50
Yeah.
foot?
It's
Oh.
down here. It doesn't quite show up in the pond, the lake. Fort Pond is down here.
Anna, that's 50 feet. So from the edge of the building, 50 feet goes right to the shoreline.
And it goes down a bank, so it doesn't flood, is what he expressed at the last meeting. So
I'm kind of confused. How come the line is perpendicular to the house? I mean, isn't the are you just showing
Just a dimension.
Oh, it's just a dimension.
Yeah, that's just a dimension.
It's not the 50-foot no disturb line then. It's
Right. The whole house is within the 100-foot buffer. The whole property, I believe, right? Or it was pretty close.
Yep.
so it's exactly 50 feet from the water edge.
Exactly. He had the deck on the back side of the house in the original plan, and we asked him to try to get it out of the 50, so that's why it's moved off to the side.
I see. Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Over to the side. Okay. Amy, so what would you like for us to do?
I think as long as you guys are all kind of all set with this, is just let Eric know so that when the DEP file number comes in, he probably doesn't need to reattend, if that seems right to you guys.
But you will put it on the next meeting?
Yeah, you can't vote yet, but
All right. I think that's fine. We'll just move that over to the next time. Okay.
Yeah, he captured what we asked, what he said he was going to do and move. So
Yeah.
reasonable.
So we do have, I think, what time is it? Like 5 more minutes before the 8 o'clock hearing for Forest Road. Amy, do you want to just go over the next meeting that we have on the 11th? If any of those things are going to get pushed out beyond that, or if there's any site walks that we need to schedule before the 11th?
the MBTA will hopefully, be responding to your questions. 9 Westchester, he's just on a slow roll right now because of the COVID stuff. Crestview, Healy Corner, some of those I'm not sure what's going on. The Point CR. So they may all come up on the 11th. They may continue to continue.
Okay. Anybody have anything they'd like to chat about for 3 minutes?
Are you enjoying this nice dry weather we're having?
Yeah.
Oh, I have noticed there's somebody did landscaping at the beginning of Grove and Lakeshore at the lake, and there's some washout there, and she kept saying that the landscaper's coming to do more work, but he hasn't. So I'm just afraid that it's continuing to slough off. Next time I go around, I'm going to take pictures, but it's soil that's newly placed there with grass seed on it, with no sort of protection, no hay spread or anything. So I can see a path right to the storm drain.
So you said this was Grove and,
Grove and Lakeshore Drive. It's like right at the corner of Lakeshore and Grove.
okay.
I have another one if Anna's done with her description.
Sure.
So Cindy Napoli contacted me and was there's evidently a lot on the corner of Colonial and Worcester Drive that I guess directly abuts conservation land. And her concern was that it pools with water, and there's also erosion heading to the storm drain at that location. I think people are starting to become a little more educated about stormwater. So I haven't done a drive-by. This was just something she mentioned, but I was gonna try to make a point to do a drive-by at the corner of Colonial and Worcester.
All right, I'll try to do that too. I'll add it to my go-see list.
Grand tour of Littleton.
Amy, do you have everyone in that needs to be in for the next hearing? I didn't know if there's anyone in the waiting room.
Everyone is in. Scott, was anyone besides you?
Bill Sturts, I believe, is here. He's
He's here
Applicant.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay. He's unmuted.
So before we get started with this hearing, I've got a grandmother that lives next door to this project, so I'm going to recuse myself.
That's not Elizabeth Harris, is it?
Yes.
I've been talking to her.
So I'm going to mute myself and cut the video for this hearing.
You can keep your video on. I think you're supposed to.
Am I? Okay.
Okay. Let's go ahead and begin. Who is representing the owner?
I am Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering.
Okay, great. Scott, you want to walk us through that? And do we need to share screens, Amy, so Scott can have access?
I believe, Scott, you'd have it at the bottom there where it says share screen.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll start with that, I guess. Let's put the locus up so you can get oriented. I'm Scott Hayes, Foresight Engineering, here for Green Hut Homes on 20 Forest Road. I filed a notice of intent for some a portion of the dwellings within the 100-foot buffer zone and some site grading and driveway reconstruction within the 100-foot. The site is located off of Washington Drive on the north side of Long Lake. Washington Drive kind of peters out, and Forest Road's on the left, and it's a dirt road. And it's only partially constructed. Number 20 is an existing house there that was recently demoed, and they're proposing to build another house in the same general location as the previous house. The new house is just within the 100-foot buffer zone, and then a part of the grading for the septic system is within the 100-foot. And the let me bring up the site plan. I just thought I'd show you the locus. Let's see. I can. I can't seem to find where to. New share. Here we go. Sorry, I'm plotting my way through Zoom. I'm getting there. This is the site plan. So Bill had filed a building permit application for the new house out here, and we kind of got caught with the wetlands across the street. They weren't mapped on Mass GIS, and the time of year we were out there, it didn't look particularly suspicious, but it was flagged by I think Amy when the building permit application went through. So we got Chuck Karen Environmental Consulting out to flag the wetlands across Forest Road. So here's Forest Road. And there's the existing gravel road here. and Washington Drive is just off the screen to the right. And you've got, bordering vegetated wetland across the street, and the 50-foot buffer kind of falls within the street right of way just beyond the existing traveled way. And the 100-foot buffer up here catches the corner of the proposed dwelling, septic tanks, driveway. There's an existing driveway here. We're just kind of reshaping that to service the new house. A lot of cells, pretty small. And we're, here's the existing house. The proposed house is kind of bolded in here. This is the septic area up in the corner here. The proposed driveway kind of kicks out here, just a little turnout to get back to Forest Road and back out to Washington Drive. We proposed erosion controls along the toe of slope on the limit of work. The lot is cleared and pretty much all just low earth cover lawn mostly. And this erosion control line kind of comes down the lot line from the 100-foot buffer, cuts across and down to the driveway edge along the edge of the existing road. And that's a stake straw wattle barrier. We also added a silt fence just along the opposite edge of Forest Road on the top of the slope of the traveled way there, just to prevent any, construction encroachment or people parking off the way and that kind of thing, or establish a limit of travel and parking for the site. So we've got the two erosion control lines. Also, there's a catch basin up here. It is upgraded from the site, but I've got it surrounded by hay bales with a silt sack in it just for protection during construction. And the changes in impervious cover don't require stormwater design, but we did propose an infiltration trench along the down gradient edge of the driveway. This little hatched area right here. Just to pick up water before it enters the right of way off the driveway. So that's the proposal. I'm happy to take any questions.
I had a question on wondering what the slope of the road is. Are you going to get any travel toward the lake to the left? And if so, maybe you need to extend your erosion control up to the corner of the lot on the left.
Well, the grade is, pretty much directly toward the street. We could certainly extend the wattle line to the rear lot corner. There is breakout grading beyond the buffer zone in that area. Goes toward the lot line, but
I see. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong line. All right, so the erosion control is little X's and lines, right? And then it goes up.
So there, like this corner here is a fairly steep slope, like in this corner that kind of drops down to the edge of the road. We're not really disturbing that area. Where the erosion control line is kind of the top of, the grade continues to rise from where the erosion control barrier is, but it's not as steep as it is on the shoulder of the road and up onto the lot here. So this slope is existing vegetated, it'll remains. So I kind of thought it was important to protect that, because we didn't want anything washing into the road, down the road, etc. The extent of the improved road is really to the turnout area right here by the utility pole. And this just kind of turns into a driveway. It's, maybe 12 feet wide gravel. Just, meanders through the right of way. Down.
I was talking about the silt fence, not the second. So you've got erosion control with the little dash X line.
Yes.
That's wattles, and then you have a silt fence separate from that.
On the other side of Forest Road here.
That's the one I was talking about, actually, because I didn't know what the slope of this road is. If it goes down to the left toward the lake, you might want to loop the silt fence up to the corner of the lot instead of having it end in the middle of the road. If you're gonna get flow down the road is what I'm talking about.
Well, there's other landowners further down Forest Road. I just don't want to prohibit their access to their property. I think we put a fence across the road.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that's true.
but I
there's
mean,
no
it is
hou-
still,
there's
it
no
is still
houses.
fence, and there isn't a lot of traffic there. I mean, we could hook
Yeah,
it
there are no,
across.
that's true. There are no house, I actually know the street, so,
You do.
there are no houses after that point, after your lot.
Yeah, could it at least get extended further along the road than stopping right at the property corner where, it could potentially be shortcutted around the edge of it?
Yeah, we could extend it.
Across the road, go
We
further
could
down
certainly
Forest
extend
Road?
it a little bit further. We're protecting that steep slope, so that whole shoulder is protected, and really, the extent of activity will be occurring in this area where the existing driveway is. This is how you're going to get into the site, because the grade is prohibitive over here anyway. So, the area beyond utility pole 2S really, isn't going to be altered. It might be used for parking temporarily during construction, but it's, the main axis is going to be right through here. So, I thought I extended far enough, I wouldn't expect any real alteration from, UP25, the hydrants going beyond this point, other than parking of vehicles.
So can you point to where on the road it turns from, bituminous to gravel? Is that in this?
It's all gravel.
Okay, the whole thing's gravel.
Yeah, it's gravel all the way back to Washington Drive, which is maybe
Okay.
from this catch basin, maybe 75 to 100 feet
Yep. Okay.
to the right.
So, okay. So for your construction equipment, are you envisioning needing to bring gravel, to more gravel onto the road? I think it's been a while, but my recollection of the road is that it's, not in great shape.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm worried about erosion and like permanent impacts and ruts and that type of thing.
it's a little rutted, like a gravel driveway. Up to this turnout area, it's in pretty good shape.
Okay.
Out to Washington, and from here, it sort of turns into,
Slop.
it's a drivable path, but there's wheel ruts, and
So, okay. So if you're going to plan to stage or park construction equipment in that location, I'm just thinking about, trying to minimize track out and, just different impacts to the road. And it would seem like you would need to plan to do some restoration after the project.
Right, and also to remember that's going to be a haul in, haul out, that there's no stockpiling in that first 100.
in the 50 foot, you mean?
No, 100.
No stockpiling within 100.
Yep.
Is that going to change your plans? Are you going to have enough room above the 100 to do what you want to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, they'll just have to build the septic system first, and then, the foundation second, and use the area of the foundation for access to the septic area during construction.
And so you would stockpile soils from the septic tank?
No, I mean, they'll park a machine about where the proposed dwelling's going, excavate down to, about 2 to 3 feet to get the topsoil and subsoil out in the over excavation area. And that will be either stockpiled in the corner of the site or removed from the site. And then they'll bring in gravel fill in this area, construct the leaching area, install the tanks. They've got to bring in, there's a net fill for the site, so they'll be dumping fill and pushing it around as they go.
So there's no work within the 50 at all, correct? According to the plan?
No.
You guys feel as though you need to do a site walk? It seems like many of you are very familiar with the site.
one thing that I actually have looked at the lot next to it, and there was Japanese knotweed over here. So I would just note that, and I wasn't sure if you have other invasives on the property similarly, but might be a good time to take care of them if you're doing all this work.
Yeah, I mean, the lot is pretty much fully developed. I mean, with lawn area and house. Chuck didn't identify anything, but I think if he's really looking across the street at the wetlands, and maybe not so much on the site for invasives, but if there are any, they'd be on the periphery of the lot, along the lot lines.
Yeah, if you pull invasives out, they need to be handled appropriately so they don't cause a problem elsewhere.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions or comments?
The only other thing I had noticed when I walked the site a while ago was how is Washington Drive plowed? So it looks like it keeps just getting pushed down the end of Washington and maybe off to the side.
Are you asking me, Amy? I don't know how they.
So right now, Betty's grandson plows it, I think, and it does just get plowed off to the side. It's quite a mess. Actually, we're planning to clean it up a little bit. So,
Plowing towards the south side of Forest Road or east side.
Kind of off the shoulder and into towards the wetland in some areas. It's kind of it's as Bill said, kind of a mess in there.
Okay.
I have one. I have one question for. I don't know. Maybe it's for the. I don't know if it's for the construction person, but I'm wondering if a wattle. It is very steep, as they say there. I wonder if just a wattle is going to do it. Whether or not it should be bales, straw bales instead, in this case, because the water's going to come sheeting down there really quickly and probably high volume. So
I'd be more concerned if it were, if the erosion control along the bottom of the steep slope, but being at the top, as long as the vegetation is maintained on that steep slope and the wattles on the top of the steeper part of the slope, I think it's adequate. I mean, I really wouldn't object to it being hay bales, but I think, just from a practical perspective, I'd say the wattles are adequate.
Well, you could keep an eye on it and see if there's evidence that it's not sufficient up into hay bale.
Yeah. All right. We don't want to find out the hard way, right? Either. So,
Okay, so Amy, we got to keep moving on with this. What would you like to do with this? Does everyone feel comfortable to keep this moving, or site walk? What would you all like to do?
I personally feel comfortable keeping it moving.
Yeah, I feel comfortable.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'll probably do a drive-by if that's okay. This is a public road, right? So I could drive by.
Sure.
Actually, I thought that the gravel part is private.
Yeah, I think it's posted off of Washington that it's private.
Okay.
Who's the owner of the property?
It's Walden Breezes. Bill Sturts.
It's Green Hut now. Green Hut Homes. I own it.
Do you want to give access to the commissioners so they can go walk down that road?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
If they want, I don't mind bringing the silt fence up towards the property corner. That's not a big deal. On across Forest.
Okay.
What's I have one quick question about what's the existing wastewater? Is there like a cesspool or?
It was a septic system.
Septic. Okay.
Amy, do you have paperwork for this?
Why, are you going to sign it?
You are, because you have the power now.
Are you voting it tonight, or
What would you guys like to do?
if they're going to do a site walk, then
Does anyone want to do a site walk?
I think just Julie mentioned she wanted to.
Well, if
Okay.
anybody's going out, I'll meet you out there. We can take a look at the road too.
Okay.
I'd really like to move this along if we could. So if you could act on it tonight, it'd be a big help.
Julie, it sounds like you want to go out and do a site walk and then you can look at erosion. So,
Yeah, that was just kind of my,
okay.
I just wanted to see it.
Yep. No, I think that's good. I think, Scott, we've given you guys some good information. I don't think it doesn't appear to be too many concerns. We meet right again on May 11th. So I think you can assume that when they go out and do their site walk that you should be pretty well set unless Amy gets back to you for the 11th. And if nothing changes, then I don't anticipate that you have to come in for the 11th.
Okay.
In virtually, I meant. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Good night.
All right. Next is Amy. Is everybody in for the library? That's the public hearing for notice of intent, Reuben Hoare Library, Mass DEP 204-909.
Yeah, let me start unmuting some people here.
So you guys remember we had a long conversation, but it wasn't a posted hearing. So.
All right, if there's anybody else for the library who wants to be unmuted, let me know. Mark, you put yourself back on. All right.
I guess for now, I'll start. Good evening. My name is Nathan Ketchel. I work for Garcia, Gluskin de Souza, the civil engineers on the library project. Also with me is Chris Garcia, one of the civil engineers, Mark Mazzarelli, the landscape architect, and Phil O'Brien, the project architect. I guess starting from the bat, as you should be able to see on your screen, this is an overview of the property. The town is planning on building a two-story, I believe approximately 11,655 square foot library on the west side of the former Shattuck School parking lot. The area where the library is proposed, sorry, I'm trying to find my spotlight, is down on the east side of the property along Shattuck Street. In the area, there is the existing school building, which is now the town offices, Council on Aging, and the existing Reuben Hoare Library, as well as a baseball field to the west. On the western side of the property is the Littleton Middle School and associated parking facilities, as well as the Russell Street Elementary School and its parking facilities, baseball field, looks like a couple of baseball fields, a track, and another playing field. Between these two properties, there is a resource area. I believe it is a Mass DEP GIS lists it as a deciduous wooded swamp. So this gives you an overview of the total 54.5 acre property that we're going to be working on. The actual disturbed area, including areas that are already developed for the project, are approximately 2.2 acres. New disturbance overall is approximately 1.8 acres, which is basically within this hatched area here. Sorry, trying to. This is the area of the site as it is currently. I'm sorry, I'm trying to zoom this out a little bit. This is the area of the project. Currently, there is an existing bituminous concrete roadway that runs along the north edge of the property. That roadway continues all the way up to Shattuck Street, as well as discharges to the west in the parking lot of in the area of the elementary school. The resource area is located to the west of the proposed development area, following more or less along the existing gravel roadway. There are existing woods back in that area. There's also a large area of Japanese knotweed that's proposed to be removed, as well as the former Shattuck School's parking lot, tennis courts, and lawn area. Under the proposed condition, we would cut off a portion of the existing parking lot and extend it further to the north. The building would be placed to the west on the slope. So you would enter the building from the parking lot from the upper level. And then on the lower level, there would be access to a patio area, which does have an exterior stair to access, as well as a meeting room exit on the south side of the building. Under the project, per the request of the fire department, there is a proposed 16-foot improved gravel roadway. It would basically hold the western limit of the existing gravel driveway and extend further to the east to accommodate emergency vehicles, both for the library and, if necessary, at the baseball field that's to the southwest of the building. I guess overall, it is a 54.5 acre parcel. When you incorporate the change in impervious area on the site, we are increasing the overall impervious on the property by approximately 23,609 square feet, which represents approximately 1% of the overall 54.5 acre lot. Utilities will include new electrical services, communication services, a new water service from the municipal main, fire service to sprinkle the building, as well as natural gas service. Sanitary service is under permit with Mass DEP. The proposal is that in addition to the town hall, the fire station, and then the schools, that the library would also be able to connect to the small wastewater treatment system that those facilities utilize. That's currently in permitting. Stormwater would consist of one deep sump catch basin, which would pick up the existing town office building runoff on the west side. Currently, that runoff, that runoff currently, there is a catch basin which discharges to a flared end section, which then flows directly to a small leaching pit in the wooded area. Once that leaching pit has reached its volumetric capacity, it then allows the runoff to overflow down the slope. Additionally, there's an existing catch basin just to the west of the tennis courts that flows towards the slope, and then is turned by another catch basin that's located in the woods. And that then all flows down to an outfall at the edge of the resource area. Under the proposed condition, we would take the existing catch basin that's in the town office parking lot. We would remove that one and then install a double grate catch basin, because it is a large area that's being contributed to that single grate structure. Direct that to a hydrodynamic water quality structure for total suspended solids removal. And then to at least match what the existing infiltration capacity was of the existing leaching pit, we'd be installing a new one. And that would then overflow basically on all storm events, because it is a small volume. Overflow to a new outlet with riprap apron swale that then allows it to flow to the west into the resource area. In the main parking lot, we have hydrodynamic catch basins, hydrodynamic water quality catch basins, which will discharge to an underground infiltration system in the main parking field. As well as a new drain inlet on the west side of the tennis courts. In addition, there are perimeter trenches to capture roof runoff, which will also discharge to that infiltration area. When the system does overflow, it will discharge to the west, just on the north side of the building, where the proposed drainage system will intercept the existing 12-inch reinforced concrete pipe and outflow at the same location as the existing system does. I guess other than that, in addition to the domestic and fire water services, we're proposing a new fire hydrant for the building to meet the requirements of NFPA. Yeah, I think that's the project in a nutshell right there. And then I think Mark Mazzarelli is going to present the landscape plan.
Hey, thanks, Nathan. Hi, everyone. Mark Mazzarelli, landscape architect here. Can you see me now?
Yep.
Oh, great, terrific. I'm gonna bring up the landscape plans and give you a quick walkthrough. Okay. I'm having a hard time doing that. I don't know if you can see. I'm having an issue on my end here. So, with share content. So my screen is frozen. I'm gonna have to nip out for a second. Can you let me back in? Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes.
I'm gonna have to leave the meeting because there's something frozen on my end here. So I'm gonna try to join you in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Actually, you know what, Amy? I guess while he's working that out, I guess I could go over at least a couple of the things that we had informally discussed previously. So we have put a bug in the library's ear to determine what the plan would be for the patio area during the winter months, and whether or not that would include the necessity to have access to the patio area during the winter months. There had been a question as well regarding if an egress would be provided to the lawn area from the patio, and one has been added. It is not large. It's 4 feet wide, located in the wall here. It does put a person onto the lawn area, so that has been added as well. In regards to the knotweed, I have in our specifications strengthened the language used in regards to the final location of disposal of the soils. And sorry. So this is also within our project manual, which is thousands of pages long when it includes everybody's stuff. But so when or if the soil is in an area of knotweed growth, that soil will be removed, contained, and transported offsite and disposed of at an approved facility capable of neutralizing the knotweed, seed stems, rhizomes, etc. We also require that the subcontractor provide a remediation plan for the knotweed ahead of doing any of the work, which will be a remediation plan that will both need to be approved by us on the design end as well as the commission as well, so that everybody is on the same page as to how the knotweed and its soil is being taken care of. Looks like, Mark, you're good to go?
I think so. Let me try it again. I'm having some issues on my end. I'm not able to share content. Am I locked out by any chance?
I thought I saw a landscape plan up there briefly. Then it.
It's not letting me. I apologize here. This is a new twist. I keep getting my screen frozen every time I try to share content here.
Well, Mark, why don't you carry on where we left off, where I think the last conversation was some of the plant varieties, just pick up and kind
Sure. Yeah.
He's frozen on mine.
Yeah. Looks like he's completely frozen. I think this was happening to me last week. It was really frustrating. It's hard to keep your thoughts.
weather. I think it's the weather. So, okay. Right. Anybody else have his notes on plantings?
His planting plan was what Amy had uploaded onto our site, I believe, right, Amy? That's
Yeah, I'm seeing if I can get it. I think I've got it here. Hang on a second.
That's what I was going to ask, if you could share it or if I needed to or something.
Can you see that?
Yep. Can you zoom in a little, Amy?
Yep. Yeah, everything's overlapping itself here.
This is Matt Kale. Just as a general note, notice it's kind of light on trees. Maybe get a few more, like Amy, we're talking about native species selection in there. Some oaks, perhaps, some other good things. There's, I think, 3 or 4 maples on that plant list.
Yeah, he had sugar maple and shad tree, I think, what was on his list.
So this is Carl. How much of the site is currently forested where the building's going on?
I think all of it.
So
it's that whole hillside's a forest, so the forest is gonna be removed for this project.
So we're losing the whole forest canopy. How big are the trees? What are we looking at for diversity in there?
Mature white pine, I think there's some maple mix. Yeah, it's a forested hillside. So it would just be good to see the site reinvigorated with a diverse species palette. The Shade Tree Committee, and Amy had the grant for so it's kind of selection criteria for native trees in town. A nice robust list that we could even potentially use to showcase here with some good native tree selections that would support a variety of beneficial insects in the pollinator garden and all that sort of great stuff.
So does the site get clear cut, obviously, to put the whole infrastructure in?
I would think so.
Well,
Well,
is there is an area, ugh, now my cursor's gone, down and back along the road that they have shown as some trees will be remaining. And the library there is the third party reviewer, Evan Abramson, reviewing it. He couldn't get it done for tonight. It was just too much of a crunch, but he would be looking not so much at the layout, just at the species, particularly with regards to some of the native pollinators, the bumblebees and butterflies in particular. And he's actually, part of his crunch is he's doing a manual right now for all these species, what they're good for, all the plant species, what they're good for and what kind of environment they need. So he should have that review, I think he said, done by the end of this week.
So Matt, would you have time to just chat with him?
Yeah.
Okay.
A list going here anyway for the work that we're going to be doing. So we have plenty of ideas and suggestions too.
Okay. That'd be nice if you guys could partner together.
So I would like to get an idea of exactly how much we're losing and how much we're gaining.
Yeah.
I think on any development site that comes to this board, losing trees is a major concern for us, especially forested areas that are close proximity to wetlands, our resource area. So to me, it's very important that I know the number of trees. We could put them over a certain size if we wanted to, but I would like to get a handle on exactly what we're losing. Do we have that? You must have that already. I'm probably asking for something you already have.
So, I mean, I can give you a square footage number. Of that 1.8 acre area, or approximately 78,000 square feet, approximately 23,900 square feet of that is forested area to be cleared. And then approximately 18,300 square feet is Japanese knotweed removal. So basically, from the northern edge of the building, or that retaining wall, working to the north or to the right on the plan, most of that is knotweed, and that's all part of the eradication of that. The wooded area is basically everything from that same area working back to the south or to the left on the plan.
That's like a quarter acre, basically, of forest. 23,000 square feet is just short of a quarter acre.
Half acre, yeah.
Half acres, 46.
You had done a tree survey, haven't you?
There was a tree survey done, and that doesn't. I don't know if you zoom in on Mark's plan, if the text shows up. But each tree was within this area was picked up.
Okay.
And actually,
do you want me to give you a quick walkthrough, or do you want to just skip that?
Yeah, Mark's back.
I think a walkthrough would be good.
All right, so let me just give you a few of the overall goals. The entire plant list comprises of all native plants. This is the woody plants on the plant list on this O1 sheet. 14 of the 18 woody plants are pollinators. And there's a balance. The goal of the design was to balance deciduous and evergreens and accentuate and give scale to the library. The plant selections were selected for their low maintenance, four-season aesthetics, appropriateness to the site, hardiness, and the commercial availability. So if we were to start a walkthrough at the front entrance of the library, which is off the parking lot, the entrance, there's an overhang on the building facade, which creates a strip of stone that's wide in some places and narrow in others. And I think that's indicated on the plan, and you can see that. On either side of the entrance, we're framing that with American holly for evergreen quality. Behind that, we're using some Clethra alnifolia with some red twig dogwoods for foliage interest and flowering capabilities. In the front, where snow will get piled, we're using juniper, the native form of the horizontalis. Along the building facade now, going down towards the north, where the building pokes close to the walk, we're having a thin strip of ornamental grass. Again, something that can withstand snow piling and still come back year after year. The bed is repeated on the other side of the big glass window, and on the end, there's a witch hazel to anchor that corner. Opposite that, there's a redbud tree. Further down along the walk at the parking lot, we substituted some river birch based on a comment at the last informational meeting with some Salix discolor, pussy willows, to help with the pollinator garden, which is not part of this project, but will be in the future. So they are placed at the top of the slope so that mowing can occur without them being in the way effectively. Further down the slope, there's river birch. This is part of a vestige of the old walk that used to connect to the lower patio, but also we feel that river birch is a good aesthetic plant that'll help naturalize the area and give four-season interest with the bark and its lacy foliage. Further down the slope, again, 3 sugar maples are placed, spaced so that they can grow and mature into full, healthy trees. Then as we go back down the slope around the library where the access road is, there's an existing group of pines and oaks that are intended to be saved. Some of the other, and then as we go around back onto the patio, again, we're using natives and balancing evergreens and some flowering deciduous plants with Ilex glabra for evergreen capabilities and for flowering hydrangeas and viburnums with lower plants, including irises, ferns, leucothoe. And in essence, that's the quick walkthrough. And then I think the one other area which is worth noting is on the transformer on the south side of the library. We're not able to plant close to the building because of the underground utilities that are crisscrossing that whole area. But on the outside of the wall, Amelanchier, which continues around towards the front in the flagpole, with another Amelanchier for again, native multi-stems, multi-stem native capabilities that help soften the building facade and the wall. So that's the quick walkthrough. We've incorporated, and then on the meadow, in terms of grasses, the lawn area, there's turf grass that meet and matches on the south side where we were just talking about the transformer. That's intended to sort of blend in seamlessly with the existing ball fields. But for the most part, on the downslope areas in and around to the north of the building, the slope is intended to be seeded with tall fescue grass with the wildflower mix. It's an all-native wildflower mix, all pollinator. And based on the comments from the meeting 2 weeks ago, we've taken the suggestion to add more tubular wildflowers and eliminate those flatter wildflowers. So in essence, and then the selection of the wildflower seeds were based on other successful wildflower mix seeds one of which was the basis of a meadow that I created for the first town park in Seekonk, Massachusetts, behind their library. So that's the presentation for the landscape.
Oh, hi, this is Anna. I did mention the variety of the morphology of the flowers last time. Thanks. I appreciate that. And what I noticed though is not to necessarily eliminate the flat ones, but just have a variety so that you could have some flat, some tubular, some, a variety rather than elimination of a certain type.
Well, I think it was a good suggestion.
That's also something that Evan's going to be looking at as part of the third-party review.
Yeah, I have a feeling that none of my suggestions, I have a feeling we probably just wait, because it sounds like this whole plan's going to have to get scrubbed and redone. So, but we feel that this is a very responsible, all native, all pollinator plan that we're presenting to the town, and will also provide a good amount of aesthetics and appeal and low maintenance going forward. But I'm looking for my re-education from Evan now, so I can become an expert like him.
It looks like 2.5 to 3 inch, like for the sugar maple. That's the stem
caliper.
Okay. All right. So that's.
We're planting on a steep slope, Julie, because so a bigger root ball would be problematic.
Yeah. Okay.
For the proper establishment of the tree.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I kind of imagine that the sugar maples would be nice, because if I can easily imagine when the trees mature that they might want to even tap the trees going in the future as an educational aspect to the project. We have budget constraints, but we'd be very open to balancing the tree count. I think we've been as diligent as we can be, given the difficult quality of the site and the steepness of the slope. And Nathan's done a very great job in terms of grading it. And then to get back to the comment about existing trees, when we walked the site, we took note of some of the key trees that would be impacted. And I think if there's a deficit of significant trees, it's very small. It would be less than a half dozen if I had to guess. And I guess my roundabout point would be, we're very open to sort of helping you balance that if the need arises. We could maybe mix and match or downsize to get the quantities, because we are designing for the future here.
I don't know. I like the balance of tree versus open, because we also are lacking open areas for pollinators as well. So I appreciate Matt's increase in the trees, and maybe we could do both. Keep the open and then just add to the density of the trees. Anyway, I also was wondering about the sugar maple, because I thought that it was kind of in decline because of climate change, possibly, although people don't really know necessarily why the sugar maples are declining. But maybe the slope and that will keep it cool enough for the sugar maple to flourish there. Just wondering if you've done any looking into the survivability of sugar maple.
I've had great success with maples over my career. Overall, I can't recall a single maple. I've been practicing for 35 years, and I have never had any issues with maples. Obviously, a red maple would probably be a safer bet, but I thought the sugar maples offered a lot more in terms of aesthetics and interest and emphasis on our native trees. It is on the north side of the building, so the roots would be shaded, which might help with its with its cooling.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Can I make one suggestion?
Absolutely.
You want to keep in mind that we got an aerial fire truck that's got to be able to get probably access to the building in case of an emergency. So you got to think about the trees and stuff and where they're going to put the truck in order to get access to the back of the building. That would be thing I would think about a little bit with the trees. Not that I'm against it, it's just you need to have space where they can maneuver the truck.
Yeah, I don't know how they would fight the fire with the truck up that slope. It looks pretty steep, Jim.
Well, I'm saying from the road up, but I'm just saying that it's maybe something, for some reason, a rescue or something that they would need to have, be able to get the aerial truck in there. I don't know. It's just food for thought. That's all.
Yeah, it looks
Kind
like
of-
a pretty long reach from the aerial, Jim.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've given the space between those sugar maples is pretty generous there. I mean, thinking about how the crowns might mature.
I'm kind of looking more towards probably the west side of where the road does get closer to the building there. If they had to get somebody up on the roof or something in a hurry.
Yeah, I think that area is pretty clean, Jim. I think they'd be good to go.
Okay.
That
Okay,
area.
that's fine. It's just,
Yeah.
that's all I was concerned a little bit about. That's all.
Yeah. I think they've got, this isn't, you know, I'm not a fire expert, but they've got two really good sides to access here.
Okay.
They like three, but they've got two for apparatus.
You never know what's going to happen.
Oh, let's hope that never happens.
But anyway, that was my thoughts. That's all. Just.
So just, you know, whatever Evan, so Amy, we're looking forward to Evan's report, and as we've indicated, we're very open to incorporating his suggestions, and he seems willing to provide those to us. So.
So this is Carl.
Hey, Carl.
I need to get back out to the site, but those contour lines, so that slope starts right at the front of the building and goes down fairly steeply. Is that what I'm seeing? It's hard to.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll let Nathan address the grading. It's about a 30-foot drop, right, Nathan?
Somewhere in that range. But yeah, it's basically a continuous slope running approximately at 1 and 3 from the top of the parking lot to the edge of the gravel roadway.
Hey, Carl, it's about 30 feet from the parking lot down to that access road down along the wetland.
Okay, thanks.
I think we might really want to keep moving along. I know we're going to meet again once you have Evan have your input. I think we've got to keep rolling here tonight. We've got other hearings as well.
Yeah, I would also say that Green has done, I think you've seen it, their initial third-party review for the planning board. No red flags on the stormwater, just some things to hash out. So hopefully by May 11th, that'll be close to being done.
Okay.
And then I also wanted to make sure you all had what you needed for the waiver, which this is all part of, or if you need more information.
Sorry, was that a question for me?
That's a question for anybody. I don't know if the commissioners want to see more or if they're okay with the fact that the fire department is asking for this.
Yeah, and actually, if I could steal access to the screen again. So, and I wanted to wait until after tonight in closing out with Green International. but these plans have started to adapt the comments that they had. But in addition, in our waiver letter, I had noted that the fire lane came to within, I believe I had indicated 5.5 feet. I did note that in that area, which occurs near this A1 flag, that the proposed replacement gravel drive did not follow the western edge of the existing. So we did pull that back out to match what the existing developed gravel driveway was. So now that distance is 6.8 feet, which matches what the existing gravel driveway is for its closest western separation to the resource area.
Okay.
If that's
So it's getting no closer than it already is?
correct.
Okay.
So once I'd like to get these out to the commission as soon as possible, but I think once things are hashed out with Green International, we'll get the updated drawings in. But these presentation sheets do incorporate things like the gravel driveway push.
Okay.
So then also, I mean, I don't know how interested the commission is into discussing the fire apparatus. This gravel roadway for the emergency vehicles, at least in regards to horizontally, it was developed using a turn radius for an aerial vehicle. So horizontally, it is able to traverse this road and not interfere with the existing trees that are to remain, particularly on the right along this south bend in here, where we are maintaining existing trees. The apparatus can stay completely within the 16-foot width of it, with no overhang extending beyond it.
Okay. You said Green was completing the third-party review for stormwater?
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that when they complete it.
We'll look forward to meeting with you all again on the 11th. Thank you for all your information tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so our 6:30 hearing enforcement order on Durkee K Phase 2 and K Phase 4. Amy, do you have photos? So Durkee DEP number 204-772, K Phase 2 204-869, and K Phase 4 DEP 204-870. So Amy's been out on site. I've been out on site. She's going to share some photos, I believe.
I'm looking for him.
Okay. Any commissioners have an opportunity to go out at all? Anybody get?
Hey, Sarah, I went out, Sarah.
Okay. Carl, you want to walk through your observation and then I can kind of go through mine and Amy can just kind of scroll down through some of the photos.
I don't have any photos that I was following.
Yeah, if you want to just talk about your experience today.
Well, where Fraser goes up to, is it the K where it connects, where the Spruce, where the there was a ton of water rolling down where it hits the rolling down the pavement, but it was actually going across, it was draining silt water into the catch basin.
Is that where the bridge is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
There-
area,
that,
So Amy, if you want to go through your photos, so
yeah,
basically starting at either at one end or the other. So I think you're starting at the top versus I think my photos started like down at the bottom. So
this is starting up in kind of the connection between K phase 3 and K phase 4 and Durkee. So if you drive straight across a bridge and up that cul-de-sac, and if you kept going behind the houses. And so it's been the area that is still in the Durkee side of things, looks like it's been loamed and graded out, just hasn't been hydroseeded yet. Still some issues with the runoff. It is mostly getting caught by the silt fence, but it's very fine. So a little bit is getting through, but there's a depression right on the other side, so it's not migrating further. And then further out into K phase 4, they've put up the new straw bales and cleaned up what had gotten into the wetland. And then still on the Durkee, this is the intersection of Spruce Street at Red Cedar right across the bridge. So, still some sediment going down through the road, but they've replaced the silt sacks and they've started putting in matting and getting this ready for hydroseeding. The basin that is right below the bridge there at Spruce Street, this morning at 11:30, water was flowing through it as you would expect. But what it's doing is it's coming down here and it hits this first end of the, what I call cell 1, and it's getting out into the wetland through there. And it's actually, it's not running through where the pipe is, it's running through where the crushed stone is and getting through the stone wall. So it's basically a direct discharge into the wetland there. And where the heck is that? Oh, that's the end of Douglas Road. So this is up at K phase 2. Water's coming down Douglas. The basin is to my back from this picture, and runoff's coming off of the unfinished lawn on lot 37, I think that is, and coming around the corner. The wetland that is off-site on town property at lot 36 has basically been burned up, so that's not really carving through K anymore. On the north side of the basin, so kind of where that off-site wetland would have drained through, it's, the water's still getting through, but it's clean down there. They've put up the new straw bales down there. And that, I'm having pop-ups on my screen. The basin at Douglas is actually, this is the emergency overflow, the riprap. The water is flowing, it's so high. And at the base of that slope, you can see where all the silty water from the basin is backing up. It's still pretty, as of 11:30, still pretty clean getting through. But it was getting close, and that's what the basin looks like. So it's just not fully overtopping, but it's just going right through the riprap there. And then on the further around the toe of slope, the new stuff is being effective. They've put stump grindings and stuff towards the bottom of the slope, and just uphill of that area, it's pretty messy, but the stump grindings are kind of doing their thing. And that's what I had.
Amy, do you have a picture of any of the ones that I sent today of where that basin where we just were up at the cul-de-sac has been undermined and cutting all the way through? So all the siltation is coming up from the road. So just up of that on the left is really, I mean, it's very, very unstable. I can look, I think I've got it on my laptop while you guys chat. But
yeah, I wasn't able to get them all up.
yeah, this area is really unstable. I'll try and look for mine. Yep, so I concur with a lot of what Amy said, what I saw today, and that was more in the earlier afternoon, I think around 3 o'clock, that underneath where the looming area, even with the matting, that it was undermining the matting and running down the road. I really saw very little sign of an effort of stabilization up of that, where that detention basin is. The lower area on the left side of that bridge where the sidewalk is just full of water and a lot of siltation there. I felt like even if they had put wattles in the road, some of those silt sacks have seen better days. And one of the ones that I saw and took a picture of it was already heavily filled with siltation as well. So I think there's still a lot of measures that could be put in place. I think everyone, if you haven't been able to go out, tomorrow would be a perfect day to see that. But I'm sure someone's on and would like to comment. I'm not sure, Brian, if you're muted or if you're on, if you want to kind of address what else can be done up here.
Sure. So for the record, Brian Goodrow, Hancock Associates. So I've been taking notes on the pictures and what has been described of kind of the problem areas. So starting with Spruce Street, the silt sacks need to be replaced in those 2 catch basins and swept. The rain should be kind of ending, tonight, tomorrow. So cleanup will take place tomorrow, obviously, and going forward in that area. In that first cell, as Amy indicated, with water kind of short-circuiting, when we went on a site walk a couple weeks ago with Amy and with Mike, the site contractor, and Chris Fennerell with K-Land LLC, we discussed that area kind of in depth of the temporary measures that we should be doing, and it was determined to put some straw bales kind of as check dams in that general area on the opposite side of the rock wall. Given the fact that Amy saw water kind of making its way through the stone in that area and the stone wall, I think, right where you're indicating, it would be appropriate to put additional measures right in there to get us through until that cell can be cleaned out, reconstructed per plan. So that is definitely on our punch list to get done immediately. Kind of as you look up Red Cedar as to the sediment loading that's contributing to this area, obviously jute mat and straw was placed along the toe slopes on lot 17 and 52. Additionally, the swale behind 17 and 52 and 51, kind of on the right-hand side up beyond Amy's car there. On the other side of the fence, that area was addressed. Sarah, we do take note that sediment and loam is still washing into the roadway, and I think that's going to be a housekeeping item to constantly monitor until we can actually hydroseed this area and get some vegetation to take. Based on the pictures and the sidewalk areas that are loamed, we're very active in trying to put permanent stabilization on this site. So we're in that little bit of transition period where housekeeping has to be done very, very frequently, and we are aware of that. And Mike and Chris will get on that the earliest opportunity. But as you go up towards Douglas, as indicated on lot 37 and 38, kind of at the intersection, there are additional measures that can take place up there. Additional matting on those slopes so that the sediment isn't coming straight down into Douglas Road and then either making its way down Red Cedar to this problem area or over towards the basin at the end of Douglas. So those are key points that will be addressed. The basin on Douglas, so there is rilling and erosion kind of on the back side of the wall, as Sarah indicated. That has not been loamed or seeded yet. The basin,
Brian, it might be easy if I just share that photo. Amy, can I share something for a second?
No, let's see.
Well, so if I go to screen share, yep, it's not letting me go over to me.
You have to click on it. It's not easier if first you get it up onto your screen.
Well, it's on my desktop.
On your desktop, and then when you hit share screen, you'll have to double click on it.
Did that work?
Nope.
All right. Did that work?
There you go. That worked.
So the wall is to your left, just to acclimate. So Brian, I don't know, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so that is significant. I mean, that's probably got like a 2-foot gully. And this is coming out from the cul-de-sac coming out underneath, so it's undermining. So if we can figure out how you can address that in the coming days, that would be great.
Absolutely. The last thing I think anybody wants is anything undermining that short wall up by the road. So that will be addressed immediately. While we're on the basin, one of the key points is the weir where it's discharging. That's not an emergency overflow, although it doubles as it. It is the primary point of discharge. This is not a retention basin. So water is supposed to flow over that weir on not an infrequent occasion. So during this period when we have kind of the higher sediment loads in the basin, again, it comes down to maintenance of those straw bales on the other side to ensure that we're not discharging any sediment beyond the erosion control line. And then to pivot towards the opposite end of Douglas in the areas where the road has not been constructed, it appears that there was an additional area. Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong. The straw bales were installed per our sidewalk, but there was a second area that was just a little bit south of that towards Grimes that had some additional water going near it. Is that correct?
Well, this is behind lot 19.
Yep. So, okay, as we were walking up, we saw that small depression on the right-hand side where it looked like historically something went through there.
Yes, everything's getting...
So that's not a... Okay, so that's not a new...
Right. It's trapped in there, but, you know, it's not looking great.
Okay. So we'll take a look at those erosion control measures and get some bales in that area as well. It was identified during our site walk, and it's on our list of cleanup activities for when things dry out a little bit. So
and I know what you do back here in phase 4, the new area where you're still going to. I assume there's big piles of stump grindings and mulch and stuff back here.
Yep.
You'll be excavating this basin soon, I assume.
Exactly. So the basin's got to get roughed in still. It's just too wet to work. So I think they're focusing on roadway base right now. Catch basins are in, but obviously no rims are to grade because there's no binder yet. So I believe they're just going to bring the road up and then form the basin. When the basin has been formed, then the rest of the road to be built out. So that the water from that undeveloped area will head towards the basin. We're just not there yet, obviously.
Right. So I think we want to be clear that we've got to work on some of the sites that are unstable before we entertain unearthing more. I don't know, Amy, can you show videos on this? Have we ever done that on Zoom?
You're welcome to give it a shot.
All right. Hold on one second. No, my share option is not there anymore for some reason. Oh, well.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't want any video.
All right, Brian. Lucky day, Brian. Okay. So we on the 11th. We would like to, are you ready to submit something today or tomorrow of what you're doing to kind of get everything under control?
Well, I think we have our punch list of items to bring that into, bring it under control. So we have the first cell with our temporary measures down by Spruce Street, replacing silt sacks on Spruce Street, continue to routinely street sweep. We've already jute matted the majority of red cedar, carry that jute matting up into Douglas on lot 37 and 38. The only question mark that we have out there right now is that the basin and the wall, with that new railing and going that Sarah's pictures indicated. So we do need to investigate that to see where the water is coming from, if it's actually under the wall or if it's kind of coming off of the curb line and around it, in which case we would need to redirect that into the catch basins. And then obviously our routine maintenance of existing erosion controls. Again, all of phase 2, the tail end of Durkee, these are our final stabilization measures. So our measure is to loam and seed immediately, get jute matting in the sloped areas to make sure that loam is not washing out into the roadway, and then maintain these erosion controls in an effective manner to make sure that we're not discharging sediment across that line until vegetation establishes, at which case there will no longer be sedimentation. And then we had just talked about some additional measures out at the opposite at phase 4, back behind 19. So I think the practices and what we need to do have been outlined pretty thoroughly, with the only question mark being that small area by the wall at the end of the cul-de-sac.
Okay, and you can email that list to Amy tonight. And has there been any discussion of dewatering up in that area? Because you're exceeded your capacity at the moment.
We have not entertained that, and I think once these rains secede, the water in the basin is going to go back down. Again, just because we're discharging over that weir doesn't mean that we've exceeded capacity. The design elevation of that weir is such that it is supposed to discharge. It's not retention.
But it's not supposed to discharge what it's discharging. So, right, if it was clear, that would be one thing, but it'll be interesting when you go out tomorrow to see how much has gone past and down underneath and through. So based on the photographs, that was not clear water being discharged.
Yeah, understood. And kind of the key area is to make sure that those erosion control lines are doing what they're supposed to do. So yes, that will be of extra note tomorrow during a sidewalk when we go and maintain everything.
Yeah,
Brian, you mentioned measures for cell 1. Like I've heard just the phrase temporary measures twice now. Are you guys, does that mean you're like gonna check it out and try to figure out what measures need to be taken? Or could you be more specific about your plans downstream of cell 1?
Sure. So going through the water that's leaving cell 1 and going across the rock wall right now, there's check dams within the channel on the opposite side of the wall. What they have on site are the stump grindings and straw bales, which we can get into that area to make sure that water is not breaching the rock wall the way that it does right now. And ultimately, that, along with basin number 5, which is all the way downstream of the swale, need to be reconstructed probably in June when we're out of the rainy season. It's on our list to reconstruct. We're aware of it. We just can't do it right now. So what we need to do is just make sure we're not discharging that silt-laden water through the rock wall as it is right now. So that will be fixed immediately.
Okay. Thank you.
I still don't have my street straight, but going up the hill off of Fraser, where I was initially talking about, I'm surprised that there was no precautions taken to avoid the silt. I mean, the road was a mess with silt. I mean, it was just a very messy site as far as I could tell, and it didn't seem like there was any precautions at all, thinking that we might have rainstorms coming, to even try and stop some of that silt from rolling down that hill at all. That was my observation today.
If I could just clarify, Fraser is before Spruce Street. So as you enter, we're talking about the same area in the catch basins and the block wall on either side of the road at Spruce. The road that heads up into K is Red Cedar, and Red Cedar had a number of measures that were taken with the loam and seed from the back of the curb up those slopes and then stabilized with both mat and straw. There's a swale in between lots 51 and 52 and 17 and 18 that was completely lined with jute mat and straw to limit the amount of sediment that's going into there, as well as when it stops raining, which is hopefully tomorrow, the roads will be swept so that whatever was washed into the road will not go into the catch basin. The silt sacks will be replaced, and then we will inspect the matting that was placed previously to correct any of the erosion that happened underneath of it. And again, these are measures that we can take, that we have taken because we can't get seed down until it stops raining. So hopefully, say later in the week when it's sunny, we can actually get seed and begin the process to vegetate these slopes, which eliminates the problem.
I would disagree with Brian and concur with Carl that I feel as though there were additional measures that could have been taken into effect today, and that would have been as simple as putting some wattles out where the loom that was covered with the jute mat was still coming out from the hill down onto the road. So it seems like at least three of us, maybe four of us were out there today. I saw no one working there today to try and counter any of the measures, but I feel as though there was not due diligence put on that site today, knowing that the rain was coming. And that's the end of my comments. So
You've only got one day this week that's going to be good, and that's Wednesday. The rest of the week is all going to be rainy.
Wednesday will be a big day for us.
well, hopefully tomorrow will be a big day for you cleaning up as well and putting other measures in. So I don't
Agreed.
feel as though there's adequate measures on site. So.
And will this be recorded as part of the SWIP reports, or how are you going to report on what's being done?
We can certainly do that. So Mike can document what he completes tomorrow and Wednesday and issue that to you, Amy. And just a clarification, I saw an email, Amy, from you regarding the Durkee header on SWIP reports. So Durkee and K were permitted separately, but they're being actively marketed all as Durkee Farm Estates, which is why I believe there was a little bit of confusion. The SWIP reports, as Mike told me, encompass basically the end of Spruce Street and then all of the work up on Durkee.
So that 3/4 is not necessarily K phase.
But yeah, it would be phase 2, phase 4, and then what would be phase 3 of Durkee.
Okay, thank you.
One last comment. As we close out this discussion, I'd like to, because you're under enforcement order, that any day that it rains, that Amy is submitted with a report on how things are going out on that site.
Okay, I will relay that information, and we will get that to Amy.
I'm wondering, I have a question. I don't know if it's appropriate right now. I was just wondering how the farm pond drainage is working with all this rain as well.
So it's a wet meadow. We're not seeing any of the ponding issue. It's soggy. You can see it, the farm pond standing water elevation being basically at its seasonal high right now. But we don't have feet of water, so it was effective in returning the area to what it historically was.
Okay, good. I'll have to go take a look.
Okay, anybody have anything else? So we meet again on the 11th.
Hey, Anna, just quickly, I took a look at that pond area and it looked good to me. I agree that it's the meadow area looks nice. The pond area I think it looks nice right now.
It's very wet.
It's very wet, yeah. But it's it's reaching the point it should be at.
Good. All right. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Last discussion, the 8:45 discussion enforcement order 9 Air Road DEP 204-898.
Good evening. My name is Mark Arnold with Goddard Consulting, here on behalf of the applicants and the owners for 9 Air Road. And just wanted to walk the commission through quickly what steps have been implemented in the last week, just to kind of walk the commission through what we've been actively doing on the site. The existing sediment basin to the west of the access driveway has been cleaned out. After the basin was cleaned out, we lined it with stone riprap to stabilize the side slopes. The area exposed subsoil, which was present to the west of the sedimentation basin, has been removed, and the area has been dressed with riprap. The existing catch basin, that's to the north of the area along Route 2A, it's just in front of Lot 3, has a fitted silt sack. The erosion controls have been refreshed and staked out as required. And in addition, we do know that we've not cleared all the trees that we were actually permitted to. We're actually preserving more trees. And then the slopes have been loamed and hydroseeded that are within the buffer zone. I was out there this morning during the rain. We had normal runoff coming off the street, actually onto the site, going into our temporary basin. And we were seeing no silty water leaving the site. I did review the enforcement order that the commission issued, and I did issue a letter this afternoon, which I'm not sure if the commission read or not. Amy, I'm going to see if I can share some of the photos just to kind of clarify what I observed in respect to the enforcement order statement that the activity has resulted in sediment to the bordering vegetated wetlands. Is that okay?
Yep, go for it.
Want this guy. Oh, that's not what I want. Hold on, I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I get the desktop. All right, here we go. So I believe you can now see this is the letter that we submitted this afternoon. The intro just discusses the site conditions. The road is a crowned road, so you have street drainage on the west side, which is the wetland side. You have countryside drainage, which is the water chute flows off into the wetlands and off to the road. The east side is the side that has the 2 catch basins. This is the catch basin in front of Lot 1. You can actually see that there's water in the catch basin, which is because the other end, which is photo 2, is actually showing that the culvert's clogged. So the water is actually not really, it's filtering probably through the sands that have been slowly filled into the wetland here. This area is all undisturbed. You can see there's almost no water going to it. There was no silty water going to this catch basin. I don't believe this one was in reference to the enforcement order, but I did want to review the conditions of it just as a precaution. This is another picture of that area showing the road drainage gullying off, going into the wetlands. Photo 4 is the outfall of the catch basin north of Lot 3, which was the catch basin photographed in the enforcement order. This is the water coming out. You'll notice it's clean. You also notice the leaves around it. There's no evidence of any siltation of any kind. And you'll see in the enforcement order the colors of water that we saw in the enforcement order there. Another photo there showing the dense herbaceous vegetation. Again, there's no deposits of cloud anywhere in the water. With this dense vegetation, you'd anticipate to see significant sediment trapping within the vegetation itself if there was a large sediment. Just as a baseline, this is in front of the Littleton Electric Light and Water Department side of the road. You've got water flowing off, going to the wetland. This is what you would see in a wetland that was receiving siltation. Just as a reference to what what I saw above with the water in the wetland here, you can see it's crystal clear here, and the difference here, just as a reference on there. So I looked at the photographs that were in the enforcement order. This is the first photograph in the enforcement order from April 14th. Reviewing the site, this area here has changed. We've added stone all the way up to near the catch basin, and now with the water now sheeting flowing through the stone back towards this structure here. And this sketch just kind of shows the general idea that the road is crowned, so half the roadway shoots towards the edge of the street. It's like the curb line, except there's no curb actually. The site is lower with a stone. You have water coming in here, and we had water going into this basin from the roadway after it filtered through the stone into the low basin here. And then this is the low point. You have a high point up here where the catch basin actually is. This photo here shows the silty water from the site. This is probably mostly resuspension of the fines that were actually already there when it rained and pooled. They resuspended into the water column, and you have clean water here and here going to the catch basin there, which is located right here. And so this next photograph just kind of helps you see what's going on. That's the catch basin. This is the curb line water going to there. There's water here. It's not cloudy. It may be dirtier because it's coming off the edge of a roadway, which has some sands, depending on if they swept it recently or not from the winter, and how dilapidated the road is. And then you have the silty water here, and the cloudy water here. You can notice that it's not actually reaching the catch basin here. You should see this cloud continue all the way over if that was going over there. This is the other photo. Again, this is looking the other direction. So there's the catch basin right there. Water coming down from where the Jeep is down to the catch basin. You notice you don't have an actual channel of water reaching the catch basin from the site, which is back here.
So one point of clarification, I showed the applicants and the engineers where some rivulets were occurring right at the bottom. If you keep that photo up, I can tell you exactly where. So at the bottom of the arrow where you have the flow label, there are rivulets there, and we showed those to the applicant and the engineer. So they were check damming. They were using the material at the side of the road as sort of a check dam, and so there was absolutely evidence that water was getting through. And then furthermore, the water on the right side running down the road, there was run on from up the road. And then in addition, I agree with you that the crowning of the road is also contributing. But that water was also silty. These photos are taken with a pretty old iPhone. And so these were things that we explained to the applicant during the site visit. So I just wanted to clarify those points.
Yeah. So from my review of the wetlands themselves, there's no evidence. I found no evidence, even trace amounts of sediment from this catch basin to the wetlands. It's a direct discharge from the catch basin to the wetlands. There's going to be some siltation trapping within the catch basin itself, depending on how deep the sump is, how recently it was cleaned. But looking at the condition of the roadway drainage as it is, it's probably pretty silty already, and just because of lack of maintenance by Mass DOT. So
there was another photo. There was another photo of light material that had accumulated on the grate.
On the grate itself, and that was within the enforcement order?
I think that was within a site walk. I don't know if it made it in the order or not, but that was part of the site walk. That was a photo that was absolutely shared with the engineers, or the engineer and the applicant.
May I ask, as a point of order, what day were you out on property today?
This morning. Yeah, this morning.
Okay, so you weren't out there last week?
No. But how
many inches of rain have we had in the last 2 weeks?
So in the last 2 weeks,
Sorry, you're
Wilton area, you've had approximately 2.5 inches, I would say. I'm monitoring a site in Sudbury right now, so I'm watching the rain gauges there. In the last 24 hours, you've gotten about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of rain from this storm, even though it's been pretty light.
right. But I think that as a point of order, we saw more rain a week ago when we were back out than what you've seen recently.
Yeah, so if there was, there may have been a minor impact to the water quality because of water entering that catch basin. It's pretty evident from the site conditions with the stone along the road now that any issues have been addressed, and that the key question of has there been an adverse impact to the wetlands? I've seen numerous sites with heavier siltation, with flows of sediment into the wetlands that have been able to be cleaned out and no adverse impact. And here we have a pretty clear evidence that there's no resuspension of even the silt within the wetland itself, which sometimes you see from small impacts during storms. In this wetland here, we're seeing no resuspension. The water's crystal clear. The next storm after an impact, that's kind of unusual unless it's been extremely small amount, which isn't going to adversely impact the wetland. So we understand the Commission's concerns about making sure that we're controlling the site, and the applicant's been diligent to loam and seed those slopes in the buffer zone that are stable. We have very good soils on site that are allowing the water to infiltrate, which is significant. And we're retaining a lot of water off the roadway that normally goes to that catch basin and infiltrates it right now. So right now we're actually treating more water than we normally would, because that curb line is now being pushed onto our site and into the temporary basins that we have on site and into that gravel tracking pad that we have. And the roadway looks great. The track pad is perfectly clean. There's no evidence of tracking onto the roadway, which is excellent. So from my perspective, I understand that the enforcement order was issued because of an issue of sedimentation. We found no evidence of any adverse impacts. There's no necessary for a restoration plan. We are working with the engineer who is on this call to just have us clarify how we've limited the number of trees that have been cleared. We were going to clear more trees, and we've actually tweaked that. We've actually tightened our limit of work to save more mature trees along 2A, and we're having the engineer prepare a sketch plan for that to show that we've been preserving the trees as required, and additional trees have been preserved, and those measures as well. So I think from a wetland standpoint, though, the question of adverse impact, I don't think there is any adverse impact. And second of all, the measures that are in place have definitely controlled whatever issue there was. And just as a baseline, it's good to remember that what this roadway normally sees for runoff is cloudy water into those catch basins, but it's definitely a distinct color. And I think that was evident today, and since it's the photograph showing that we had clear water out of that catch basin that is receiving the water in front of our site from Route 2A.
So you said you were out on site at 11:30 this morning?
I was on the site this morning at 8 a.m.
Okay, so how much rain had fallen at that point?
Littleton had received about 0.6 inches, 0.7 inches, I'd say.
Okay. So I think one of the challenges of this site and one of the concerns is that, the side of the road has been changed, and the site is accepting, runoff from the roadway. And one of the major concerns that we mentioned when we were on site is that the temporary basin, may not have capacity when there's a larger storm event that we typically get in the summer. The site is way more open than, we had previously discussed from a stormwater standpoint. And so one of the things that, I think we need more information on is the capacity of this temporary basin to take, you know, a bunch of stormwater heading down that road, particularly as it compacts with the truck traffic, particularly as we get our flashy summer storms. You know, and what is that going to look like? You know, I think the gravel, you know, is an improvement, and, you know, I acknowledge that work is being done to stabilize the site. But one of the concerns was, you know, we've caught it when there's been, you know, relatively low levels of siltation into the catch basin. You know, what I think we don't know is the freeboard of that temporary basin. You know, it seems very, very tight. And then, you know, what happens from there? Is it designed to take the runoff from the site? You know, how do we know that the problem is? So I think there's an improvement. I absolutely acknowledge there's an improvement, but what?
Well, I think it's important to put in perplexity. If you look at the site, the stormwater management, I mean, on the whole site, the 100-year storm event on this site, in pre-existing conditions and post conditions, is under 0.5 cubic feet per second for a 100-year storm event, for runoff leaving this site, which is almost significantly unmeasurable. You're talking extremely small amounts of runoff leaving the site because of what's actually allowed to actually infiltrate. So we are looking at making sure that we manage the water coming off route appropriately, and if we have to direct all that water directly to the catch basin and let the runoff from the road be treated as it's normally been, if that's the commission's concern. I mean, the basin is sized for that area. The gravel is infiltrating it fairly rapidly, and we've been seeing that it fills up and it goes down. And the soils are really good for that. I mean, it's gravel. It perks significantly quickly. So I think in respect to that, we have the site under control, and we're definitely thinking and working through the processes as the site works towards making more progress. We're looking at tweaking those things, and that's why the field's asked me to come on board to take a look at the site and kind of work through these issues, and also work with Desharm and Dillis just to kind of make sure that we're taking the appropriate measures to do that. And I think at this point we don't have a violation that's would prevent us from continuing work in the buffer zone. And we understand that the commission is watching the site very carefully, and we are taking that very seriously. And
Mark, if I can interject a little bit, because I was out on site a week ago with Amy and with Julie and the other 3 representatives as well. We were there as it was starting to rain, and as standing right below the scale, it was significant the amount of rain and runoff that was coming down that road that was not treated. And so we talked about that, we addressed that. We also looked at the slope right above the basin and how unstable that was. The hay bales were atrocious. So there's no erosion control at all. And obviously the photos will show you that. And I don't know if that's been taken care of or not. But those were 2 things that were very apparent on the day that we were there and it was raining. So there was lack of control. I don't know if you've taken control of that or not.
I know they have installed new hay bales along the toe of the slopes to be able to lift and right of the driveway.
Up the hill, as you're standing right next to the basin, you look up the hill, all the old original hay bales that were either installed improperly or have failed.
I know they've been checked, and I know they also did put them. They also made sure they were all staked.
Okay,
so
you were there today, though. Did you look at that?
I did. Yes, they're in good condition for that area and what's needed. So, and again, we're monitoring that tracking road because again, things change a little bit, and that's why we're there to monitor it and make sure that we're keeping an eye on things. And that's why Desharm and Dillis has been out there and actually having an engineer out there looking at SWIP those things, just to make sure that we're maintaining the site interior, which is our goal, because we don't want to have any issues within the buffer zone that could impact the wetlands.
So, Mark, I'm assuming you're familiar with stormwater and regulations and SWIPs and the like. Is that your part of your role?
Yeah, I'm a certified professional in sedimentation and erosion control. I do SWIPs, environmental monitoring for commissions.
Great.
All that.
Okay, so I had a question about, it looked like the from the photos I saw, there were, the tackifier and the seeds end at the 100-foot buffer.
Yes.
So you're aware that the stormwater regulations and your stormwater plan apply to the entirety of the site?
Which stormwater regulations are you referring to? Are you referring to Mass DEP stormwater?
The construction general permit, which is the inspections that Amy gets in association with the construction general permit.
So you're referring to the SWIP permit, which is what we're required to fall under the NIPD's permit and that agency, which we have been forwarding those copies just as references to Amy. So that the requirements of the SWIP vary depending on the site conditions, soil permeability, and also what activities are happening on the site at a current time. So if site is actively being worked, your stabilization is not necessary. Areas that have been undisturbed for more than 14 days, depending on their conditions, need to be stabilized fairly rapidly, depending on their conditions. So this site here, we have a gravel, it's perking. We have, and it's actively being worked significantly over the almost the entire area as they process the material and get it off site as quickly as possible. So we are aware of those requirements and we're taking those into consideration. I mean, at this time, I don't believe there's evidence that there's inadequate control outside the buffer zone on the site. They appear to be taking the right measures and monitoring as appropriate and working towards stabilizing as they work the site.
Well, I think that was one of the concerns, is that north of the scale, or I apologize if it's not north, but going up from the scale, that water that is coming down in terms of that drainage is then coming down into the jurisdictional area. So we want to make sure that all that water that is coming down there is worked into your calculations.
Yes, it is. It's part of it because it's part of the watershed that has to be considered. So that we are taking that into consideration, and that is our primary thought process is that road is making sure that we can retain as much water up gradient as possible, and making sure that it's able to be infiltrated where possible, because the best thing is to keep the water outside the buffer zone where possible, and that's our goal.
And then and you may not be able to answer this or not, there was a question when we were on site pertaining to fueling areas. And so we got, I think, 2 or 3 different answers to that, if there's a staging area for fueling of equipment or where that's occurring.
I don't really, I'm not totally filled in on that question. I'm not sure if Greg has the ability to jump in there and comment on that.
Am I live here? Can you guys hear me?
Yep, go ahead, Greg.
Hey, good evening, everybody. We're still working. I wanted to be responsive. I know we have a pretty significant list relative to SWIP items. I know that's one of them, and we are working through those. We're doing that in a comprehensive manner. I'm not quite ready for prime time here to get you that complete thing, but we're just about through going through that. Part of this process was getting Mark on board here. The client retained Mark, so we're trying to do this as thoughtfully and expeditiously as possible. But so the fueling is happening up on the top of the site, and we're going to memorialize that for you as a formal response to the SWIP.
When do you think, Greg, you'll have that all done? By our next meeting on the 11th?
Oh, absolutely. It'll be this week for sure. Matter of fact, I believe it'll be even tomorrow or Wednesday. We're working. It's our top priority in the office. I just don't want I didn't want to get you a parcel document tonight when I just have to, you know,
Okay, 'cause I know that those were going to be part of our discussion tonight, but it doesn't sound like you guys are ready for that discussion. So Julie, do you have any other?
relative to your SWIP items. You know,
Correct.
you don't have those in front of you, obviously.
So,
I wanted to let you know that we are working on them.
so how fast does the water infiltrate?
Greg, what's the perk rate? It's got to be under 2 minutes an inch, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, this is an 8.41 Rawls rate or greater. I mean, it's a very coarse sand with very little fines in it. I mean, they've run sieve analysis out there and they're getting less than 2% fines in this material. So it's very, very coarse
So
material.
any infiltration is reaching the groundwater very fast.
Yeah, and I know
No filtration.
why it's important to make sure that we have our fueling and spill protection identified on site. So we recognize that, and we'll make sure we have a more comprehensive plan for you.
And okay. And then I'm assuming Mark for sure understands this, and I would imagine Greg, you do too, that the groundwater beneath the site is in communication with our wetlands. You know, there's
Of course. That's understood. Yep. And then that's why we're just making sure that we checked everything that you guys have asked us to look into. In respect to the SWIP, we're working to stay to work in compliance with the SWIP. The SWIP is the purpose of it is to really just help be protective of the wetlands and other resource areas when other permits aren't in place, particularly. And so that's why we filed for a SWIP, even though it wasn't required in the order. We still have the SWIP in place and have been doing those reports as necessary.
Okay, any of the commissioners have any comments or questions while you have Mark here?
What's currently going on at the site? You had mentioned, per the SWIP, that any inactivity over 14 days and you need to start worrying about stabilization of slopes and everything. I know you guys are working to keep the site under control, but other than that, what's the active site look like?
So the active site, we've got a gravel road going up through the north side of the site, and it wraps around to the top. The top is all rimmed in with berms. So the top area has a control area as a watershed up top that's basically containing any water up there. This soil doesn't erode because it's not really soil. It's more gravel more stone than actual soil. And as Greg said, less than 2% fines. So when it rains, you're not seeing you don't see erosion rills forming. Gullies are not forming in the sub gravel that's there. So that's the conditions of the site. I wouldn't expect those to change significantly at all for the rest of the duration of the grading.
How long? So one of the issues that, I think once the stormwater is, you get more of a handle on some of the stormwater issues that we ask you to look into, is that, it was represented to us that this was a live load operation. We asked the applicant if it was going to be live load or stockpile. We were told live load, and then a conversation regarding stockpiling, which is occurring. The typical conversation we would have, which I'm sure, you've seen before, for example, we talk to every applicant who's going to have something directly up gradient, snow storage, all of these things, so stockpiling directly up gradient of the resource area was not something that was ever discussed. The project that is occurring, in that aspect is significantly different from the project that we permitted. So going forward, we need you guys to think about, just some of the stockpiling, designated areas, how things are going to be protected, how it's going to be communicated to operators, where it can and can't occur, and that type of thing. So these are things that were never addressed.
I mean, the approved site plans show temporary stockpiling areas in the rear of the property where the material is being loaded into trucks. That is on the plans directly behind lots number 2 and number 3. Goes into lots 2, number 3. It's actually shown as temporary stockpile area excavated soils. That is on the plans. We've not been stockpiling in the buffer zone because we have been seeking to avoid working near the buffer zone. So that's been the intention, is to make sure that we control everything up front, because the closer you get to the street, the more of a risk there is to the adverse impact to wetlands. So they've been working in the back of the site to keep it up there, keep it controlled, and prevent it from getting any closer to that area. And again, these stockpiles of fine sands and gravels, we're not talking fine silts material like you'll see in other sites, even in Littleton, where you can get a lot of erosion from these stockpiles. These stockpiles will not erode because they're heavily coarse material, and they're also retained up top in the area. So they were on the plans. Every site has stockpiles. This site is a lot more earth movement than a typical project sees, but that doesn't necessarily mean it needs to be treated any differently in respect to that. And I think overall the applicants appears to be doing a good job at handling the sites, not opening up the front area as much and keeping it to the back. They could have opened that whole front area up a lot quicker, and it could have been a lot worse, and they've strategically set up to kind of work their way out in the back there and keep that area kind of closed off from the front. So that in that respect, I think there was definitely some notice that there was something. I understand that sometimes it's hard to grasp that grading that occurs on this site is larger than typical, and that's why it can be hard to visualize even on a plan. But the plans appear to show that they were stockpiles permitted and shown.
That's the plan we saw today. So the operations, so ongoing operations at the site, the runoff and the infiltration is still going to reach groundwater, and the groundwater is still in communication of the wetlands. So I would anticipate, the material, the operations and loam screeners and, having industrial equipment on site for an extended period of time would not be anticipated typically for a residential development. Typically you remove your material, you build your houses so you can make your money. And so with respect to keeping industrial material or industrial equipment on site for an extended period of time, I have concerns regarding the infiltration to the groundwater, the drips that always happen with heavy equipment, the drips of oils, the little mishaps. And I'm concerned that there's no, industrial SWIP, or, is there like a spill plan? I'm concerned about these things from an operations standpoint. It's very different having a site have, your material pulled out in a diligent fashion and have your houses built and buttoned up. That's typically what occurs. I feel as though it was a bit misleading to not be told there was going to be a loam screening operation on the site, for example. And so I have concerns that remain around the equipment and the infiltration into groundwater for an extended period of time at this site.
I recognize your concerns. I just want to be clear too, where that the equipment that's being used is all being operated outside the buffer zone, and we're working diligently to maintain environmental protection of the groundwater outside the buffer zone, because we do care about those things, and we are listening to your concerns. But just bringing this back to the question of the enforcement order, I just want to clarify the questions that the enforcement order raises as to what action items are really necessary for compliance with the order. We're updating the SWIP just for further clarification of our plans, just so you understand that. We understand your concerns, and I agree. We want to make sure that all the spill stuff is readily available to anybody who's new on site, who's coming on site to review it, so we are able to catch those, anything that potentially could happen. But at this time, the site is under control in the buffer zone. We have multiple professionals working diligently to maintain that.
Mark, you recognize it's jurisdictional upgradient as well, correct? So when we asked for this,
I don't believe there's jurisdiction upgrading of the buffer zone on this site. There's
contributes, it is. If it contributes to the buffer zone, it is.
There's no evidence that this site has contributed to an impact to the wetlands. It's activities outside the buffer zone. If the question is has there been an impact to the wetlands that requires further review outside the buffer zone? That's the question that's at hand. I've dealt with this with other commissions and with DEP, and the key question is has there been a significant early adverse impact to the wetlands because the activity was so large that it got through the buffer zone. And so
large, it has to be an impact. It does not have to be large.
It's impact, exactly, and it needs at this point I failed to see what the impact was, which I mean the enforcement order was pretty clear on the language of sediment in the wetlands, and I've seen this commission orders issue enforcement orders with that same language, and I couldn't find the evidence of any sediment. They've obviously addressed it, and their concerns there. And so I feel the enforcement order is we've addressed the concerns within the enforcement order that's under the order, which was the sediment within the impact, sediment within the wetland, which I couldn't find. That was the item in the enforcement order that I saw was the most concerning to me, because that was the one that I saw that was actually something under the order that we were supposed to comply with.
So have you submitted evidence that the temporary basin has adequate capacity? Because I haven't seen those calculations, and that was something that we asked for.
We haven't submitted it. Again, I don't understand how the enforcement order relates to that, when the enforcement order's question was the activity has resulted in sediment to the bordering vegetated wetlands. Again, I found no evidence of that.
Did you look around? How deep was the discharge area? You know, there's absolutely evidence that siltation was leaving the site into the catch basin with a direct pathway to the wetlands.
I looked at the wetland discharge point, and I've seen many discharges into wetlands, whether from culverts into the wetlands or into streams, and the deposits.
It was also a week after. You weren't on site when we were there, so you're talking about a week after. So let's carry on the discussion. Does any other commissioners have any questions?
I have a question. Even if it happened before, if he can't find where it went or any deposits, I guess it begs the question, then does any action need to be taken, even though it may have happened before during that time? If he can't see any evidence now, how is he going to clean it up?
Right. That wasn't
that
we were asking.
One point.
We were asking to stabilize the site and demonstrate that the temporary basin can take the water that it needs to take, because there is evidence of siltation heading towards the jurisdictional area.
The enforcement order did ask for a restoration plan, which doesn't get requested unless there's been an impact, and that's I was trying to understand where is the impact for the restoration
Well, I also think there was in question the soil. So Julie, if you want to talk. There was also a question when we were out on site as the lighter colored soil that was not a natural soil that was there, that was tracking down towards that catch basin as well. So
it was in the catch basin. It was on it.
And then past it going, yeah, well, it was in there too. So.
Yeah, I agree. I saw it. I also can have concerns about the temporary basin, also having the calculations done on it.
Sorry, I'm afraid that, can we bring up the enforcement order and see what it says about that basin?
I have it open here.
You got it.
So this is the enforcement order. So just to be clear, extended activity, unstabilized stockpiles and slopes over the majority of the site. Again, that's outside the buffer zone. Is leading to siltation down the access road into a small created basin. The basin is observed to overtop in rain events and subtly stormwater with silty waters running nearby catch basins and into the wetlands. Erosion control stockpiles are placed but not staked, are in poor condition. Work is being conducted and not being conducted in accordance with the SWIP. In particular, slopes have not been stabilized in the next 14 days. Material stockpiling occurring in the buffer zone, although no stockpiling locations were approved in the order of conditions, and the commission was told material was removed by live low and with no stockpiling, photos attached. You notice here the specific violation was the activity resulted in sedimentation of the border of items, and the project is not in compliance with their SWIP. The SWIP is not referenced in the order, just as an FYI. Restoration plan required by today's date. Again, what restoration are we referring to? Because I haven't found an impact to that. We've installed additional controls on site as requested to bring the site into compliance. We're updating our SWIP just to clarify our controls in the areas outside the buffer zone. Here it looks like the reference to the appropriate manage the volume of site runoff. I think that's the key question right there. That's what you're looking for us to do, is the question of the manage the volume of site runoff that's reaching that location. Is that the commission's question there then with respect to the basin, is making sure that we're managing the volume of site runoff in that location?
It looks like it.
Okay. So, and the attachment below just has the, these are questions under the SWIP that we'll be addressing.
So we meet again on the 11th. I'm not sure if the commissioners want to go out for a site visit before the 11th or after the 11th when everything will be completed. But we will then obviously be not using the site for 14 days. So there may be other parts on the site that have to be stabilized.
We understand that we still have the right to access the property through the buffer zone, to the rights of use of our property outside the buffer zone, but we are understanding that the commission does have enforcement order and that we haven't complied with the SWIP at this time. Again, I just want to state for the record that the SWIP is not referenced in the order of conditions, nor is it mentioned in any special conditions. We are seeking to comply with the order's requirements with respect to the order's specific erosion control requirements that are in the order, which are separate from the SWIP. Those are two separate items, and I just want to make sure the commission's clear that we'll be treating. You have to keep those both in mind. A lot of them run in parallel, but they are different in parts, and we're complying with them as applicable.
So remember, you keep talking about the area outside the buffer zone. If it's any of that area is contributing as you're working into the buffer zone, that's our jurisdiction. So I don't want to, you keep kind of You keep isolating the two, and you shouldn't be isolating the two because
a site that slopes towards the buffer zone, it's outside the buffer zone. If you're working if you're working 200 feet from the wetlands on a slope that all shoots to the wetlands, outside the buffer zone, you're non-jurisdictional to the buffer zone if you're outside it. If I'm working 150 feet from a wetland and I'm on a slope that's sloping towards that wetland, that doesn't mean that I automatically am jurisdictional because I have a slope towards the wetlands. It's the question of adverse impact to the wetlands. Has there been an impact that requires the need to look at other areas of site? If we have control of the areas outside the buffer zone, those remain outside jurisdiction, and we're working on those concerns.
Well, it seems as though you need to let us know when it's under control.
And we're working to demonstrate that, just to show that we do have that under control. We believe we do, and we'll provide that at the next meeting with the clarification.
So just as a point of reference, you just said that you were going to continue work. So you're going to continue work now prior to.
I'm not going to state. I'm going to state that the applicant is reserving their rights.
That is not what you just said, though.
No. That the applicant is reserving their rights, and I understand the commission's concerned about activities in the buffer zone, and we recognize that, and we're working towards addressing the concerns in the buffer zone with respect to that basin, and making sure that we have control in those areas, and showing you the how we've cleared less trees on the site and those things. We're working on those, but we're not stating that we're going to cease work outside the buffer zone. I can't say that. We're reserving our rights. We have other meetings with other boards that we're going to be working through. So as those are addressed, we'll see. But I'm not going to state for the record that that's my position. I can't state that. So just to be clear, and again, we're working towards any activities that are for the benefit of control on the site. That's what we're working on. And sometimes that includes working on the site to improve conditions.
I got something to add to this. Have you bothered to check out to find out where the town aquifer is? I believe it's probably under that site.
I understand that in an area of gravel, there's a large area for water to recharge into the groundwater table. I'm not a geologist, so I can't really answer that question. But I don't think the question of where the
why don't you check with the water department? I think you're going to find that whole area there is under the town. It's on top of the town aquifer.
We're checking and confirming with town departments as necessary for what we need to do for working on the property in its entirety.
I would think that would be a key question that Jim just brought up. If that's sitting on top of the town aquifer, that would be one of the first questions I would get answered.
Well, we have many experts looking at this, and we understand the commission's concerns about protection of the groundwater table, and we care about protection of the groundwater table even if it's outside the commission's jurisdiction. So I want to make sure be that clear that we're looking to control things and maintain things, and we don't want impacts of any type anywhere. So we're working towards that goal. Rest assured.
Mark, I just have one last question because I was not on the site prior to a week ago. What was the last day that there was work on that site?
Define work. The last week they've been doing some erosion control, placing stone in areas that are disturbed.
Prior to the enforcement order, which was on the 22nd. So I know it had been lay for a few days. So I'm just trying to make in my notes, how long has it been since there has been earthwork on the property?
I don't have that much background on that sequencing. I'm not sure if Greg has better background on that too.
Is Greg still on this call?
I'm still here. Can you ask that again?
Yep. So Greg, my question is, I'm just trying to get my data in order. So I was out on site. We did the enforcement on the 22nd. When did you guys cease working on the property prior to that?
That's a good question. The cease and desist, I think, was on and then off and then on. I don't have that exact date.
Okay.
He's talking about a different cease and desist order, not.
No, I'm talking. Yeah, I'm talking about when the last time was that someone worked on the property, because I'm trying to understand stability of some of the banks. So I'm not clued into what happened prior for what happened with other boards. My question is, when was the last time equipment moved gravel in and out of that property?
Weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not exactly sure on that, Sarah.
2 weeks.
I apologize.
Weeks? Did someone say 2 weeks?
Michael, are you on the call? On the Zoom?
Yes, I am.
Can you answer that as an owner?
Yes, there's been no activity off the site in the last 2 weeks.
I mean, that's maybe there has been 1 or 2 trucks to be.
There was one load that went to.
But we have video cameras up, so I can give you an exact number if you want to know. But it's
No, so, and here's my track so that you understand. So we get into the stabilization of piles. If we're not going to do work for a while, we then just need to make sure that the piles are following the 14-day inactivity. So I'm just trying to make sure that if things are going to be we're all under the same guidelines.
So we have an engineer that is taking a look at the soil samples and the type of soil. It's his impression that the soil that's been exposed for the last 2 months has not migrated anywhere. It's not going to impact the buffer zone when it's out of the buffer zone. It's a porous sand, very, it does not move or migrate in the same way as a silty material would. The majority of that site has been exposed that way for the last 2 months anyway. The only pile of material that is really a overburdened pile is up on the top furthest point away from the wetlands right now. Everything else that is exposed is either natural soil or there's a couple screening piles up top out of the buffer zone that if they were to remove material, they would be gone in 1 day.
To clarify too, when it comes to stabilization, stoning an area is considered a permanent stabilization method. And so that is why the coarseness of the material has to be taken into consideration when it comes to stabilization. It does not require that the EPA and SWIP does not require that you loam and seed the entire site as permanent stabilization. It's the question of the material that needs to be stabilized if it does. Gravel areas does not need to be stabilized.
We agree that we're not here for a lecture or a lesson. I think we're well aware of that. So going forward, the area on the left is what I consider unstable. So that's why I was asking in terms of what's going on the property, trying to get a little bit of history.
Yep.
My questions are over to you, sir. Anybody else have any other questions?
I just have one other point of clarification. So the purpose of a SWIP is to help plan and have control of the stormwater over your site. That is the only evidence we currently have at the moment of control of stormwater on an open site directly up gradient with potential runoff, and runoff we've seen down the driveway into the buffer zone. And so currently the SWIP is our evidence at the moment of how well controlled stormwater is at the site. So I just want to make that clear, and because of the speed of the gravel into the groundwater, we'd really need more information regarding, how spills are going to be controlled, incidental drips from equipment, trucks, and as we spoke about earlier, that groundwater is in communication with the wetlands. There's no division there, so there very much is environmental concerns with respect to, the ongoing operations, and buttoning up the SWIP is your evidence of how you have stormwater controlled directly up gradient of the resource area.
Amy, is there anything else we need to address so we can let them go?
I don't think so. The only thing was just getting the survey of the orange construction fence, which is on Greg's list.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So we meet again on the 11th.
We'll see you then.
Thank you. James, is there anything else? We meet again. We've got a full docket for potentially for the next meeting.
I don't think so. I think we're getting pretty late. It's almost 10:30.
Right. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn? We do have to do a roll call.
Amy's
Is there any interest in starting earlier? You can start anytime you want to.
Maybe 7 next time.
Yeah, that's fine.
That works for folks. You don't have to
Does
commute.
that work for you?
No.
Works for me.
Yep, 7's good.
Yeah, 7 works.
I think Jim said no.
Jim said no.
Oh no.
Okay, we'll stick with 7:30. That's fine. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, who seconds?
Second.
One at a time. Who's the second?
It was Andrew or Julie.
I gave it to Andrew.
Aha.
To everybody. Yeah.
Okay, let's not forget, we still have to do a roll call. Meeting to adjourn. Jim?
James Pickard, yay.
Andrew?
Andrew Smarko, yay.
Kyle?
I think you fell
Sorry, I was on the wrong screen. Kyle Maxfield, yay.
Carl?
Hi, Carl Melberg, yay.
Anna?
Anna Mayer, yay.
Julie?
Julie Rupp, yay.
Sarah Seward, yay. And it is adjourned at 10:23. Thank you all.
All right.